You want to answer only the question that was asked, only to the extent that the question was asked. You want to narrow the question as best you can, okay? Or the request, whether it's a request or a question. So the inspector could say, I want to see all deviations for the last 3 years. That could be quite a list if it's a really big facility. You might want to narrow it down to, do you want to see deviations for a particular product or products or something like that? Otherwise, you can generate the list, but it may be, hundreds of pages long, okay? Or I've had this, I want a list of all the equipment, and I want a list of all the calibrations for all the calibrated instruments in the facility, okay? Well, there's a facility not far from here that has 21,000 instruments in it, right? You want a list of all that? Or do you want just a list of maybe this line, which is 200 instruments? So you can narrow that down. You can ask those questions and try to narrow that down, and explaining that what you're asking for is very large. We can get it for you, but it's very large, and it will take us about a day to compile it. Or if you want a narrow slice, I can get that in an hour, that kind of a thing. So you do want to try to narrow those things down. If your SMEs, all your personnel that may encounter the inspector should be well trained in how to respond. Again, answer only the question that was asked. Do not answer if you do not know. Feel free to either ask for clarification or say, I do not know, but I can go and find out, okay? Never answer a question that is outside your area of expertise. Say, that's not my area of knowledge. We can get somebody in here. Don't volunteer anybody's name. Management will take care of that outside. You don't want to ever volunteer, oh, you should talk to so-and-so. He really knows, or she really knows. Don't do that. That doesn't usually work out well. Okay. The inspectors will generally ask a few questions, and then there will be dead silence. And there could be some minutes of dead silence, right? What I've seen a lot is the host knows not to say anything. The scribe never says anything in the room. But that poor SME is standing there and getting kind of, oh God, what's going on? I'm sweating. And I feel the need to fill that void. Don't do it, okay? If you do have to talk to the host and say, hey, did you see that basketball game last night? Or whatever. Anything but what has to do with the matter at hand, okay? Let the inspector do it. They do this on purpose. Sometimes they're actually reading stuff and it just takes time. But I noticed the technique early on. I've used the technique. People want to fill that gap and just give you more information than you ask. And some of it can be very interesting. Okay? It's it sounds easy. It's not. It's a difficult thing to be quiet, right? Because this can go on for minutes like that. Also, I've had an inspector go on and stand in front of a sterile filling room for 45 minutes. Just stood there and watched the two operators. Now those poor people in there had to be like, oh God, when is he going to go away? My bad knee is hurting. There's no chair around. Well, what happened is that inspector sat there and waited and waited and waited until they finally did something they weren't supposed to do. Right? So they're doing freeze drying, and they have these stainless steel pans that they put in the freeze dryers, and the pan was empty. The operator was holding it, and the operator started going like this with it in this aseptic area, creating, as the observation said, unwanted eddies and air currents, which were never validated. Okay? Flag on the flag. So he finally saw what he wanted. So you got to train your operators. That guy could stand out there for an hour or more. Don't let it bother you. Do what you're supposed to do. Right? You should not have conversations in there or whatever it is, whatever the rules are. Right? Don't get nervous, because he's just waiting till you do something. Right? Or she. Right? So, two scribes at the front room. The primary scribe transcribes the proceedings. Okay? So they're going to so you want to set up a communication system. It's kind of like a messenger system that you might all use on your phones and what have you. But in this kind of a system, you want it to record everything that goes on. right? So everything that's typed gets recorded and archived. So the scribe in the room is going to type on a computer everything that the inspector says, what the inspector is looking at, what the inspector asked, what was responded to the inspector. All that is being shot not only to the back room, but to a variety of people on site. Yes?
So we've been told that's not allowed. We've had auditors tell us you cannot scribe it to the back room.
I've never told we couldn't do it.
Okay.
How do they know?
Right.
They've checked what our scribes are sending.
That's not, I would argue that one.
Okay.
Right? Because even before the electronic age, we would have a scribe writing it down, either in shorthand or otherwise, or writing down everything that's going on.
Okay.
The only difference here is you're telling the back room and you may have select people in management that they can see what's going on. The reason for this, it's not really a big advantage, but it gives you an idea of where the inspection is heading. It's really all that does, okay? And it might let you get a document over there a little sooner, right? But you want a record of what was said. One main reason is you want to make sure that you don't miss anything. If the inspector asks for something, you have the host should be writing out a request, either electronically or on paper, okay? But the scribe should also write that down, because you don't want to forget to give the inspector something that he asked for, because he isn't likely to ask for it twice. But he will bring it up if he doesn't get it at the closing meeting, right? So I asked for this, you did not bring this document, and it could be a 483 observation. Might not be a big one, but you'll never make that mistake again. So there's a very good reason. I've never seen anybody say that you couldn't do that. You know, in our firm, I mean, we have a lot of auditors. We would never say that, and I've never heard FDA. First of all, FDA doesn't know where your back room is because they never go anywhere near if it's set up right. Right? They don't. I mean, I'm sure they think that it's there, but they don't see it. At any rate, that's what they do. If you use them or don't use them, that's your choice. Okay. The host or QA director will enter each request on a form, written or electronic. There should be a form maybe at the back of the packet. You might have in there a copy of a form, because you can track it easier. But at any rate, every form should have a unique number. The form should be in duplicate. One stays with the requester in the room. The other one goes outside to the coordinator in the back room. That coordinator will then notify whoever's going to fill that request that there's a request for such and such, and they may get a copy of it, okay? We'll go into that process in a second, okay? So the request goes to the back room for fulfillment. The host reviews every document or record that is brought to the front room, okay? Want to make sure that everything's correct in it before they give it to the inspector. They ensure that this document or record is the one that was requested. If there is a question, the host, the host will have many documents in front of him, well in advance of what the inspector can review in that speed. So he's given documents to the inspector whenever he sees that the inspector is ready for another one. He can usually set that one aside unless the inspector asks for it. Then if he asks for it, he gives it to him. But otherwise, if you see something wrong, something that doesn't look right to you, you want to get that answer before you give it. Because that question, if it didn't look good to you, it's probably not going to look good to the inspector. That question's going to come up anyway. Right? So you try to do that. Now, trying to avoid that in the first place is when the request goes into the back room, it gets logged in, and then it gets transferred to the department or manager who's going to fulfill that request. So for the sake of argument, you wanted to see three instruments, calibrations for the last 2 years, okay, or the last 2 calibration cycles, whatever was asked. Okay, so you're going to go to calibration or send that by email to the calibration manager, who, by the way, knows that the FDA is in-house and will answer that email all the time. Lunchtime, anytime, doesn't matter. They know that it's coming, right? States was. Right. Now, this is all part of the training preparation. All your managers that you get a request know that the FDA is in-house. They know to expect requests, and they also know from looking at the discussions that they may be going towards their area. So they're going to be on cue for that. Okay? They're going to look at it. They're going to pull that data. They're going to review it. If it's calibration data, like I used to do, I had 3 metrologists. I got 1 metrologist looking at all that stuff. Again, everything the way it's supposed to be. Then I look at it, make sure it's okay. Then we copy it in triplicate. We keep 1 copy. Everything that we give in that department, we keep. You don't have to do that, but it was a good thing to do. So we keep everything that we give. We bring 2 copies over there. All right? Then it gets stamped, it gets logged in, and it gets stamped. Every page gets stamped copy, unless it's an original, and every page gets stamped confidential. So as part of the backroom setup, you've got to have several stamps that say copy, several stamps that say confidential. You need a photocopier, okay, and you should have a backup photocopier, all right, handy, because these machines tend to quit working when you need them, right? So you want a backup somewhere nearby. You want staples, you want Post-it notes, you want pens, papers, computers, whatever you need. You want to make sure that back room has all that stuff. And you don't want that back room immediately adjacent to the front room. Okay? The inspector should never see that back room or where it is. And should never be able to hear what goes on in that back room. Right? So, because there can be, you know, some discussions that really you don't want the inspector to hear. In the back room, you also have a series of SMEs, and those subject matter experts for you are going to review those documents when they come in one more time. They're going to make sure that they're signed, that the dates are there, that if there's specifications, all the data meets that specification. Okay? If it's a report, an OOS report, or any kind of a report where a quality conclusion is drawn, they're going to want to make sure that that sounds logical to them, that there is evidence for the conclusion drawn. Okay, they're going to play the FDA inspector here and see if they can find anything. If they do find anything, they're going to want to see if they can get it corrected. If it's got a missing signature, it has a missing signature, somebody better come over here and sign the original and annotate that we signed it today. It was inadvertently not signed at the time it happened. Now, you can do that to a document like calibration or where you have data that you can review today. You could have reviewed it yesterday, I can review it next week and tell you that it's okay, or that it's not okay. But you must, of course, document your signature the day you actually enter it, and if it's not the date it should have been per procedure, you should explain why that is. Okay. So you cannot post-date, predate anything, right? That would be fraud. But you can sign it today. Now, some documents you can't, if it's a missing verification signature for an activity, like did I add that ingredient to the bulk tank? Well, if I didn't see it, I can't sign for it. And the only thing you can do there is this was inadvertently not verified. However, analytical testing shows that vitamin B12 was in fact added to the tank or whatever it is. You might be able to say that. But you have an automatic, so when you don't sign that, you better have a deviation for it. So that deviation might happen today, because that's when you caught it, all right? But you better open up a deviation for it, right? Or a non-conformance in the medical device world, right? Anyway, so that the reviewer in the back room is going to check out everything. If everything is fine, they're going to sign off on it, and they're going to give it to the coordinator. The coordinator is going to note that that this has been received, and we'll bring it in, or you have a runner, we'll bring it into to the host in the front room. Okay, and then it is closed. The request is closed, meaning you have fulfilled it. Right, so you can wipe it off the board, and you don't have to worry about, oh, did we give that to the inspector? Yes, we did. At this date and time. Typically, I've seen, I haven't seen it always, but sometimes there's a log that's kept for everybody that goes in the front room. And the reason I don't see it as much as I used to in the old days, earlier in my career, is that when you have the electronic scribing system and what have you, that scribe's going to write down everybody that comes in the room anyway. Okay. It gives you a good history of the event. This is what the back room should not look like. Okay, it's a little too crowded. You need some workspace. The reason for that is you're going to have a lot of documentation coming into that back room on a typical inspection. You don't want to cross documents. You don't want to mix something up with something else. Okay, so you want to have adequate space for people to work so that that does not happen. All right. It's not really a huge 483 kind of hit, but it is terribly embarrassing. So backroom conduct, communications to the backroom should be concise and clear and accurate. Communications should be recorded on paper electronically. There should be absolutely no chit-chat. That is the scribe, and somebody in the backroom should not be carrying on a conversation that has nothing to do with the audit. Okay? Because you don't know who else is watching that. For instance, vice president level people may not really appreciate the fact that these chit-chats going on. Not a huge regulatory risk, it just isn't good practice. The requests are fulfilled by the back room without undue delay. The FDA does tend to review the quality of your quality management system by how quickly you can fill those requests. It's not so much that, oh, you filled this in 10 minutes, you must have a really good system. But if I ask for it and I never get it, then I question, you know, it's been a day, and what I asked you for was real simple. I question your quality management system. How are you filing stuff? What's going on? Why in the world can you not give me a calibration record, you know, in an hour? It's been a day and I don't have it, right? Well, all that's going to make me do is not so much say something, it's going to make me dig a little bit. I'm going to start picking at that thread, right? I'm going to go look at your document management system and see how the stuff is. And if it isn't good, okay, you've just let me go down a path that you should never have allowed. Would never have happened if I had gotten that request in a reasonable time period. Okay? Already talked about duplicates and copies and confidential things. These are the 10 basic steps that go through. It's initiated, it's logged, it's reviewed, it's assigned, it's fulfilled, it's copied, you know, it's stamped, it's reviewed, it's delivered, it's closed. Next one. Thank you.